From future champions to overrated prospects, we're going to be ranking every single UFC contender's chance at becoming champion. Arman Tsarukyan versus Ilia Topuria is probably the most talked about matchup at lightweight right now, and I think that Ilia Topuria does beat Arman Tsarukyan. I think there are some things that Arman can kind of give Ilia Topuria trouble with, like the wrestling. Arman Tsarukyan's going to be the most dangerous wrestler that Ilia Topuria has ever fought, but I still don't think he's going to be able to do enough to actually win the fight with his wrestling, because we all know if Arman Tsarukyan tries to stay on the feet with Ilia Topuria or gets stuck on the feet for too long, he's going to get finished badly. There's really nobody in this weight class who can stand with Ilia Topuria. After seeing that Charles Oliveira finish, you can't really argue against that. And for Arman Tsarukyan to be champion, he's going to have to beat Ilia Topuria. I still think he does have a decent chance to beat Ilia Topuria, especially compared to the rest of the lightweights, but I can't confidently say that he's going to beat Ilia Topuria. I'm putting him in the B tier. Paddy Pimblett's next, and this is probably the fight that's actually going to happen. This is probably one of the most polarizing matchups because most of the people think that Paddy Pimblett's going to get completely dominated and flatlined in the first round, but then there are some people who think if you look at the matchup, it's going to be a harder fight for Ilia Topuria, and I still think Ilia Topuria is going to embarrass Paddy Pimblett. I think he's way better, way more skilled, but I think some of the people that are saying that this matchup is kind of hard for Ilia Topuria are right. I don't think he's going to lose, but I think the matchup is actually kind of hard because Paddy Pimblett's probably the biggest 155er in the UFC right now. He's tall, he's got range, and he's actually really filled out, and I think Paddy Pimblett will come out with a good game plan. He will keep his distance against Ilia Topuria, but I think he can only do it for so long. I don't think he's going to be able to hold down Ilia Topuria or dominate him on the ground. Paddy Pimblett's a good wrestler, but I don't think he's as skilled as a guy like Arman Tsarukyan or Islam Makhachev or maybe even Ilia Topuria. I really think the only advantage Paddy Pimblett has in this matchup is the physicality and the size, and I think Ilia Topuria will just dominate him and show him the different levels of skill, and that's why I'm putting Paddy Pimblett in a C tier. The final lightweight contender is Justin Gaethje. Listen, Justin Gaethje does not have a shot in hell to beat Ilia Topuria. I hope we all know that and can agree with that, because after seeing that Charles Oliveira performance that Ilia Topuria just put on, I don't know how you could argue that Justin Gaethje could win. Justin Gaethje fights very similar to Charles Oliveira. He presses forward, he gets in close range, and boxes. Justin Gaethje pretty much mostly boxes. He throws leg kicks too, but are we really going to trust Gaethje to win the fight against Ilia Topuria just off the fact that he has good leg kicks? I don't think so. I think Justin Gaethje is going to try to box with Ilia Topuria, and he's going to get rocked and put out badly. There's no chance Justin Gaethje beats Ilia Topuria. Justin Gaethje is not going to be able to take him down or hold him down. The only chance Justin Gaethje has is to land a wild hook or one of those up close dirty boxing uppercuts, and that's why Justin Gaethje is going in the D tier. But up at welterweight, we have a new contender. His name's Islam Makhachev. He just vacated his lightweight belt. Now he's going to fight Jack Della Maddalena, and I think this matchup is extremely close. I think the people who are saying Islam Makhachev is going to make easy work of JDM, I think there's not many people saying that, but the ones that are completely wrong. I think this is Islam Makhachev's hardest matchup ever. Even if he goes back down to 155 and fights Ilia Topuria, I would be more confident in Islam Makhachev fighting Topuria than I am JDM. And looking at JDM's last fight, he's clearly a better striker than Islam Makhachev. I don't care what anybody says. He has much better boxing than Islam. He's not awkward like Islam Makhachev. He has great footwork. He always keeps his balance. He has great head movement, and he has a lot more layers to his striking than Islam Makhachev. And on the feet, I don't think Islam Makhachev is going to win this fight. If Islam Makhachev thinks he's going to go out there and strike for 5 rounds, he's not going to win this fight. The only way Islam Makhachev can win is if he gets control time or if he gets a finish on the ground. And I don't think he's going to be able to get a finish off JDM. I think JDM has pretty decent ground game, and especially the fact that he's working with Craig Jones, kind of how Volkanovski was in their fight. I think he's going to be prepared for what Islam Makhachev has to offer in terms of, submission threats. The way I think we all see Islam Makhachev winning is by control time, probably by decision or something like that. I'm just not picking Islam Makhachev to beat JDM though. I think JDM will be able to stuff those takedowns, but I think this fight is still very close because JDM's a better striker, I don't think he's worlds above Islam Makhachev. Makhachev's still a pretty great striker, and I think it will be close on the feet, but I think it's mostly going to take place on the feet. I don't think Makhachev's going to have much success holding JDM down, but the fight, in my opinion, could still go either way, and that's why Islam Makhachev's going in the A tier. Kamaru Usman's just coming off of his win against Joaquin Buckley, and he probably is in title contention right now if things go his way. And even though he beat Joaquin Buckley, I wasn't totally impressed by his performance. Yeah, I picked Joaquin Buckley to win, but Usman's striking did not look great at all. It looked really sloppy. His wrestling and pressure was there, but at this stage in the game and how old Usman is, where he's at in his career, his knees, his striking is not as high level as some of these new guys. I don't think he has much of a chance to win the title. I don't think he beats JDM. I don't think he beats Shavkat or probably even Ian Gary. So I'm not confident in Usman being champion at all or even beating some of the other top contenders. That's why Usman's going in the C tier. But Shavkat Rakhmonov's next, and he's lost a lot of hype, to be honest. After that Ian Gary performance, it was a pretty close fight. He got the win, but he was supposed to fight Bilal Muhammad, but he got injured and now he's not fighting for like basically until the end of this year. And that Ian Gary performance really took a lot of the hype off of Shavkat. He didn't look that great. His wrestling isn't super high level, nor is his striking. He's not the most skilled welterweight out there, but what stands him apart is the physicality, and that's really the only reason I think he has a better chance than Usman. He's probably the tallest welterweight contender. He has a granite chin, he has decent cardio, and he's super strong, and that's really what I think is mostly going for Shavkat. I don't think he stands out with his skill at all, but just because of how big he is and how durable and powerful, I'm gonna put him in the B tier. But the next championship fight at middleweight is probably one of the most hyped up middleweight fights for a super long time, and it's Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus du Plessis. Khamzat Chimaev finally gets his title shot. It's about 2 years later than we expected, but finally it's here. And I'm gonna be honest, the closer this fight gets, the more confident I am in Khamzat Chimaev winning this fight. The more and more I think about this matchup, I think Khamzat Chimaev's kind of the kryptonite to Dricus du Plessis. I think a specialist is really the person to beat DDP, and Khamzat Chimaev is probably the most dangerous grappler in the entire UFC. I think there's a really big chance Khamzat Chimaev is just going to finish DDP in the first round. I really think so. Dricus is a great fighter, but he's very well-rounded. He doesn't stick out highly in one specific aspect of the sport like Khamzat Chimaev does. And I think Khamzat Chimaev's high level enough to really expose the grappling of DDP. I don't think DDP has horrible grappling, but compared to a guy like Khamzat Chimaev, I think he'll be able to get a finish in the first round the more and more I think about this fight. And that's why I'm putting Khamzat in the S tier. But up at heavyweight, we have a new champion, Tom Aspinall. And the fight I think we all know is going to happen is Ciryl Gane versus Tom Aspinall. How does this fight go down? Does Ciryl Gane have a chance? I really don't think so. On the feet, you could say that maybe Ciryl Gane could catch Tom Aspinall. They're similar in size. Ciryl Gane's a pretty decent striker, especially for a heavyweight. But I think Tom Aspinall's a better striker. And Ciryl Gane doesn't pack that much of a punch with his striking, especially in the way that Tom Aspinall does. But let's forget about all that. I don't care if Ciryl Gane was even a better striker. What we do know is Ciryl Gane has horrible grappling. We saw that with the John Jones fight. We saw it pretty much with the Francis Ngannou fight as well. And Tom Aspinall is a good grappler. He has good wrestling. He has good jiu-jitsu. I think if it was tough for him on the feet, he could just take this one down and win pretty easily. I'm not very confident in Ciryl Gane winning this, especially the fact that he's not fighting that high level of competition and he's not that active. I'm going to put Ciryl Gane in the C tier. But the rematch we're all waiting for at light heavyweight is Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev 2. Listen, I think Alex Pereira, people hate when I say this, but I think he is going to be washed when he gets in there. And I don't think he's going to be completely just absolutely Tony Ferguson level washed, but I think he's going to come in there even worse looking. And I think that's mostly the fact that he's getting older. He's 38 years old. And it seems like every time he gets in there, he's dealing with some sort of injury. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that he is just old. He has these nagging injuries that make him perform worse. And against a guy like Magomed Ankalaev, who I think just has the style that is pretty dangerous for a guy like Pereira, I think it's going to be a hard fight for Pereira to win. But if anybody's to beat Ankalaev, it is Alex Pereira. The only thing I'm worried about is Pereira's not that fast of a fighter. He hits hard, but he's not that quick. His reflexes are decent, but Magomed Ankalaev, that's pretty much what makes him a great striker, is the fact that he throws these really quick boxing combinations and he's very defensively sound. I think it's going to be hard for Pereira to land one of those shots on Magomed Ankalaev because of the fact that he has good defense. He has way better defense than Jiri, way better defense than Jamal Hill, better defense than Khalil Roundtree, and he has the size to match the range of Alex Pereira. So I'm putting Alex Pereira in the B tier. Down at featherweight, Alexander Volkanovski's champion once again. And I think the biggest matchup we all want to see is Movsar Evloev versus Volkanovski. I think Movsar Evloev has a pretty good chance of becoming champion. Even if he got in there right now with Volkanovski, I wouldn't be pretty confident in picking Volkanovski to win that fight. And especially the way things are going, the fact that Volkanovski is probably going to fight Yair next, that just gives Movsar more time to get better because he's the younger guy and Volkanovski more time to age. and get worse. Regardless of the circumstance of when they fight, I think the matchup is kind of hard for Volk. Movsar Evloev is a strong grappler with good cardio that can scramble a bunch. We saw with Aljamain Sterling. And Volkanovski's not really known for his power. And I don't think he's going to be able to put out Movsar Evloev in the first or second round or put him out early. And that just gives more time for Evloev to tire out Volkanovski, who's the older guy, who's aging. But I still can't pick Movsar to win because of the fact that Volkanovski, he's fought guys like Islam Makhachev. He has great wrestling. He has great jiu-jitsu. He's probably the most well-rounded fighter of all time. Volkanovski could possibly be better than Movsar Evloev everywhere. I think the main thing going for Movsar is the physicality. That's one thing he does have over Volkanovski, is the fact that he's younger and stronger. And I think this would be a really tough matchup for Volk. That's why I'm giving Movsar Evloev an A tier. But the other contender at featherweight is Gene Silva. He has a fight with Diego Lopez. And I'm going to be honest, I think he probably does win that fight. I think it's really close, but I think he's going to be able to get a win over Diego Lopez. And I think that puts him in a title picture. And if Movsar is not the guy to beat Volkanovski, I think Gene Silva is, because Volk's biggest weakness at this point in his career is his chin. We saw that with Diego Lopez, saw that with Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev. I think Gene Silva has a really good style to beat Volkanovski. He has clean striking, he has devastating knockout power, and he has good takedown defense. And the fact that Gene Silva is probably going to get the title shot a little further down the line, probably sometime next year, I think he has a pretty good chance. And even if Movsar Evloev's champion, I think Gene Silva has a good chance at beating Movsar Evloev as well. The biggest weakness of Movsar is the striking. I think Gene Silva is a much better striker. He has good takedown defense, like I said. I think that could be a difficult matchup for Movsar as well. And that's why I'm putting him in the A tier as well. But at bantamweight, the only real difficult contender I think we all can agree with is Umar Nurmagomedov. He gave Merab the hardest fight out of every contender at bantamweight, and I think he's the one who has the biggest chance of beating Merab. If Umar ends up getting a rematch, I think it's going to be sometime later next year. And I think one thing that people kind of look over is the age of Merab. Merab is getting older. He's like 36, I'm pretty sure. There could be a chance he starts to slow down. But also matchup-wise, Umar Nurmagomedov had a very close fight with Merab. And if Umar gets a little bit better, he's the younger fighter. He has time to improve his game and to come up with a better game plan. I think he has a pretty good shot in the rematch against Merab. And I'm going to put Umar in the B tier. But up at flyweight, the most highly anticipated matchup next is Joshua Van versus Alessandro Pantoja. I feel like I pick against Pantoja in a lot of fights, but I think Joshua Van could be the flyweight to pull this off. If any flyweight pulls it off, it's going to be Joshua Van. And especially what we saw in his last fight, just the level of boxing this guy has, the power he has dropping down Royval, I think he's going to outstrike Pantoja. I'm very confident in that. What the biggest issue is the pressure of Pantoja, the grappling of Pantoja. Will Joshua Van be able to handle it? I don't know, but all I know is that the striking is going to be the clear advantage and where he could win. And I'm going to put him in an A tier. At middleweight, Rainer de Ridder is fighting Robert Whittaker next. And if he wins against Robert Whittaker, which I'm predicting him to do, and if he gets a good performance, I think he's up next for a title shot. But against Khamzat Chimaev or even Dricus du Plessis, I cannot pick him to win. I think he's kind of like a worse version of DDP. And I think if Khamzat's champion, I think the wrestling's going to be way too much. So I'm putting him in a C tier. But at light heavyweight, we have Jiri Prochazka. And if Alex Pereira loses this, Jiri Prochazka is probably up next for a title shot. And a lot of people are saying that Jiri could be the guy to beat Ankalaev. I don't agree with that at all. I think Jiri Prochazka is an even better matchup for Ankalaev than Alex Pereira. And I think it's the fact that Jiri's a lot easier to hit and his striking is not as high level. Really, the only danger of Jiri Prochazka is just the power and explosiveness he has. Alex Pereira has his leg kicks. He has crazy power that you have to watch out for. Jiri has that as well, but Alex Pereira just has great accuracy. And I think Yuri's not going to be as difficult of a matchup for Magomed Ankalaev. I'm putting Jiri in the C tier. But lastly, we have Cory Sandhagen. He's up next for a title shot against Merab. I think this dude has absolutely no chance. I think it's mostly because of the way the matchup is. I don't think there's one realm where Cory Sandhagen can beat Merab. Yeah, he's probably a more skilled striker, but he's not going to be able to finish Merab on the feet. Cory Sandhagen's not a finisher on the feet. Cory Sandhagen has great grappling and great technical defense, but he's not going to be able to do that over and over against Merab. He doesn't have the physicality. He's not strong enough. If he can't do it against Umar, he's not going to be able to do it against Merab. And unlike O'Malley, where he does have a chance to put out Merab early, Cory Sandhagen doesn't have that. And I don't think he's going to outskill Merab for 5 rounds. He doesn't have the gas tank as well. He doesn't even have the strength to defend the takedowns of Merab as well. I don't think he's strong enough to go tit for tat with Merab like Umar did. I think this is an insanely hard matchup for Cory Sandhagen. I'm putting Cory Sandhagen in the D tier.